She deserves an heir, not an intern, her mother said, her voice slicing through the room like a blade dressed in pearls. And just like that, the laughter came. Easy, expensive laughter, polished like their tableware, sharp like the ice in their glasses. A sound rehearsed by people who'd never been told no. I counted the laughs. 6. Hers was the 7th. Hesitant, weak. But she didn't stop it, didn't correct her, didn't say a damn word. I didn't drop my fork. I didn't throw my glass. I just reached for it, took one last sip of the Pinot they bragged about importing from a friend's vineyard in France, and let the burn settle in. Her father was already launching into some story about how they once fired a gardener for trimming the wrong damn hedge. They laughed at that too. I pushed my chair back. The sound barely registered against the clatter of expensive plates and expensive mouths chewing overpriced food. I stood, buttoned my jacket, and smiled. Not the warm kind, the kind that says, you just made your last mistake and you'll only realize it when it costs you everything. Thank you for dinner, I said. Rachel looked up, confused. Her mother didn't. She was too busy buttering another tiny slice of something artisanal. No one stopped me. No one asked why I was leaving before dessert. They assumed I was just embarrassed, fragile, maybe finally realizing I didn't belong. But I wasn't leaving because I was broken. I left because the next time they saw me, none of them would be laughing. Oh, and hey, before we go any further, if you're one of the 97% listening right now without subscribing, don't worry, I get it. You're just here for the story. But if you hit that follow button, it lets the team know we're doing something right. And trust me, the stories only get better from here. Now back to the dinner where everything changed. The house sat on a hill above the city, the kind of place where marble floors echoed even when no one was speaking, and the art on the walls was real, not prints, not fakes, just casually placed statements of money. Every corner screamed legacy, but for all their luxury they had no idea what real control looked like. Legacy doesn't come from blood, it comes from leverage, and I had more of it than they ever bothered to ask about. Rachel texted me later that night. Are you okay? I didn't respond. She followed with, my mom was just joking. I left it unread. Then came the guilt bomb. Please talk to me. Don't disappear. Too late. Because disappearing was the point. I was never going to win by arguing at that table. That's not how you beat people who think power is inherited. You beat them by making them irrelevant in the systems they think they control. And you do it without raising your voice, without even being in the room. I had watched her mother for 2 years. The fake smiles she gave to waiters, the way she looked through people who couldn't help her climb higher, the polite disdain she saved for anyone who didn't arrive in a German car or carry a family crest in their last name. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the intern she mocked had been managing acquisitions for a private equity group that doesn't advertise. We buy companies that look stable from the outside but are already bleeding from within, and we don't always announce it when we're circling. We just watch. We map every weak point. We track compliance slippage, cross-reference bonuses with output, audit supplier relationships. We don't even need the owners to screw up publicly, just privately, which was exactly what Rachel's mother had been doing for the last 6 fiscal quarters. By dessert, I was in a cab. By midnight, I was in a different apartment, a friend's spare place, anonymous, furnished, and near silent. The next morning, my resignation was already sent. No long farewell. Just a one-line email to HR, effective immediately, vacating position. I left the ID badge on my empty desk and wiped the company laptop. Rachel called 14 times before noon. I didn't block her. I didn't need to. She wouldn't hear from me again, but she would hear about me. Her mother's words had power for about 6 seconds, but mine were still loading in the background, and soon they'd arrive dressed in legal notices, acquisition memos, and a new reporting structure she'd wish she'd never laughed at. They called me an intern. Soon, I'd own the building their names were printed on. The first time Rachel called me that morning, it was 7:42 a.m., right after her shower, I assume, judging by the damp voice in her voicemail. Hey babe, can we talk about last night? Her voice tried to stay light, casual, as if the words her mother spat over duck confit and $90 Chablis hadn't landed, as if mocking the man you plan to marry in front of a table full of legacy snobs could be laughed off the next morning. I didn't pick up. At 8:16, she texted, please don't do this. She didn't mean it. By 9:03, she was calling every 7 minutes. By 10:11, she arrived at my apartment, door unlocked. Inside, nothing, not trashed, Not ransacked, just empty. No laptop on the counter, no keys in the dish, no toothbrush, no coat, no coffee left in the grinder. My drawers were wiped, my closet stripped, like I'd never lived there. Like the person she thought she knew was a character in a play who finished his final scene and walked off stage. She told her mother that afternoon over espresso in their sunroom. He's gone. Her mother didn't even blink. He'll be back, once the sting fades. But it didn't sit right with Rachel. Not the silence. That wasn't new. What unsettled her was the precision, the completeness. Most people who storm off in a huff leave crumbs, a charger, a shirt, a car. I didn't. I left nothing, not even regret. That same afternoon, she tried my office. The receptionist looked confused. Michael vacated his position yesterday, cleared his desk before 7 a.m. His badge was left on the keyboard. She checked the system again. No forwarding address. Rachel stood there in her designer coat, clutching her phone like it might suddenly vibrate and solve everything. But I had no intention of calling. I didn't vanish because I was wounded. I vanished because they didn't ask a single question that ever mattered, not once. They never wondered how I paid for my graduate degree in cash, never asked why I never talked about my parents, never questioned how an operations manager could afford a downtown apartment with smart lighting and museum-grade art rentals. They were too busy measuring my worth in surnames and seating charts. By the next morning, Rachel was calling my old co-workers, my gym, even the dry cleaner. Nothing. She checked my LinkedIn. Gone. Even our shared photo albums were wiped, like a ghost pulling up roots. The only digital trace I left was an auto response on my work email. Position vacated. No further communication will be provided. She asked a mutual friend if I was having some kind of breakdown. He just laughed. Michael, that man doesn't break. He plans. And that's what started to bother her. The silence wasn't avoidance. It was structure, deliberate, calm, dangerously calm. Her mother didn't care. He was a placeholder, Rachel, a phase, a filler man. You don't marry men who say thank you when they're insulted. You date them until someone real shows up. Rachel started to push back. But he wasn't weak. He just didn't fight loud. Her mother rolled her eyes. If he was strong, he'd be here, proving himself. That was her mistake. I didn't need to prove myself. I already had. I just hadn't filed the paperwork yet. Some disappear because they're scared. Some disappear because they're ashamed. But me? I disappeared because I needed 30 uninterrupted days. No contact, no distractions, just time to open the right folders, flip the correct switches, call the quiet partners I'd built trust with over the last 6 years. My version of therapy didn't involve talking. It involved asset maps, control chains, and the removal of a few critical safeguards inside a particular family-run business that had gone far too long thinking legacy was bulletproof. Rachel's gut started twisting the moment her mother made her third "he's weak" joke over wine. Because she wasn't stupid. She remembered how I watched, how I listened, how I never argued, but always remembered, how I'd once fixed a department-wide logistics failure in 2 emails and never brought it up again. She knew that silence didn't mean absence. It meant preparation. And the man she'd let them mock over lobster bisque? He was about to take the one thing her mother loved more than her own image, control. 2 weeks after I disappeared, the air inside Langford and Vale felt wrong. Not in a fire alarm flashing lights kind of way. Worse. It was quiet, muted, like the calm before a boardroom storm, where the suits get sharper and smiles thinner. Rachel noticed it first when she walked past the executive wing and caught sight of 2 senior partners, men who usually called her sweetheart behind her back, speaking in tight, clipped tones with a third man she didn't recognize. Tall, impeccable suit, wore a watch that didn't try to scream its price, no badge, no business card, just presence. He left without a word. Later that day, her mother dismissed it. Consultant, some compliance audit nonsense. She sipped her tea with that casual disdain rich women cultivate like orchids. Standard protocol. We've had worse. But it wasn't just one meeting. 3 more unfamiliar faces passed through that week, all under the guise of outside consultants. No one made formal introductions. No one scheduled all-hands meetings. And that's what made people nervous. There were no memos. Just movement. Quiet movement. Rachel's mother still held court at the top, but her calls started getting returned slower. Her calendar suddenly showed more white space than red. And worst of all, the company's notoriously prickly COO, Harold Fink, a man who once fired an assistant for double booking a spa appointment, submitted his resignation via legal courier. Not email, not even a phone call, just a printed letter delivered in a sealed envelope, effective immediately. No farewell lunch, no goodbye speech, just gone. That's when Rachel felt it. A shift in the building's gravitational pull. Emails were being read more carefully. Legal was suddenly reviewing supplier contracts. The usually flamboyant in-house creative team stopped laughing so loudly. HR started floating reorganization language in department meetings. Still, her mother waved it all off like it was seasonal allergies. Anonymous investors bluff all the time, she said over dinner. They think a few quiet moves will make us sell cheap. It's a game, darling. Except the game was changing, and she didn't have the board. At the next leadership meeting, a junior associate mentioned a minor dip in quarterly performance. Her mother flared, "One bad quarter doesn't make a crisis. Our brand is synonymous with elite. We set trends, we don't follow panic." But panic was already in the elevator. 3 regional retail heads were suddenly put on leave. 2 design leads received termination packages disguised as creative sabbaticals. One supplier, a key one in Milan, demanded payment 30 days early due to changes in ownership risk. Rachel overheard that last part accidentally, standing in the break room while a junior procurement manager tried to negotiate it down. She scribbled the phrase in her notebook, "changes in ownership risk." She didn't even know what it meant, because no one was telling her anything. She was a junior director in name only, a courtesy title her mother handed her after college like a Prada clutch. Most of her authority was ornamental, her access limited, her knowledge curated. She was on the ship, sure, but no one handed her a map, and the ship was listing. Still, she told herself it was paranoia. She'd seen her mother maneuver out of tight corners before. They'd weathered PR disasters, supply chain snags, even a legal issue once involving some inherited designs from a not-so-original intern. It always passed. But this felt different, because it wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from beneath. Then, an anonymous tip hit the HR hotline, a whisper that certain shareholder votes had changed hands, that a new group was assembling a majority block, that someone, or some entity, had been quietly acquiring fractional ownership through shell holdings, trusts, and third-party investment firms. Rachel asked her mother about it. She got a smile in return. "Please, do you know how many times people have tried to take a slice of this company? It always ends the same way. We don't lose." But Rachel wasn't so sure, because the same day that rumor hit, she received an internal alert. Her employee profile had been moved, reassigned under a new reporting code. Temp org structure pending. She asked it what it meant. They didn't answer, just said, "You'll be notified if it becomes permanent." That night, she sat alone in her office, staring at the company website. The leadership page hadn't changed, yet, but the list of board members? 2 names were gone, and in their place, blank gray placeholders, no names, no bios, just silence. And that's when it finally clicked. This wasn't a bluff. Someone was cutting pieces out of her mother's empire, silently, strategically. And if the rumors were true, the next piece on the board was her. It was the annual Hearts for Heritage fundraising gala. Black ties, velvet gowns, the scent of old money masked behind peony centerpieces and seasonal truffle risotto. Rachel arrived alone, her hair pinned just right, her dress custom cut to suggest power without desperation. She told herself it was just another night, a chance to show she was still the face of composure, the heir to an empire that would never crumble. She had almost convinced herself that the whispers at work were just background noise, that Michael's absence was still about heartbreak, not strategy, that the mysterious movements inside Langford and Vale were just corporate turbulence, nothing more. She needed this night to be clean, predictable, decorative. It wasn't. She spotted him before he saw her, across the ballroom, under a gilded arch near the silent auction table. Michael, hair shorter, shoulders straighter, no longer the understated operations guy with rolled-up sleeves and quiet notebooks. This man wore a midnight blue suit like he'd been stitched into it, subtle, precise, no logo in sight. But it wasn't the suit that froze her. It was who he was laughing with. 3 board members, her board members, Harold Fink's replacement, the interim COO, Janet Miles from legal, and Gregory Stanton, the man who once told her she was the brand's future. All standing there with champagne flutes, listening to Michael as if he were the keynote speaker. He looked easy, like he belonged, like he owned the floor beneath them. Rachel moved on instinct. She didn't even realize she'd crossed the room until she was 2 feet away. "Michael?" He turned slowly as if she were just another face in the crowd. No surprise in his eyes, no anger, just calm. Rachel, he said, nodding. She blinked. Where have you been? He tilted his head, amused, learning how empires collapse from the inside. Then he smiled, not cruelly, not mockingly, just conclusively, like the end of a chess game played in silence. She tried to ask more, but he was already stepping away. Someone called his name from across the hall, another executive, this one from an affiliate partner company. Michael excused himself with the kind of poise only men with leverage possess, not rushing, not rude, just untouchable. Rachel stood there in $1,000 heels that suddenly felt hollow. He hadn't avoided her, he'd simply outgrown her. That's when her phone buzzed. She glanced down. A calendar alert she didn't remember setting. Urgent, full board session, 8 a.m. tomorrow, mandatory, confidential, location, executive conference level, code required. She felt her breath hitch. The executive conference level? That room was only used twice a year, for M&A approvals or leadership transitions. She looked back toward the crowd. Michael was gone, vanished again, but not like before. This time his disappearance was theatrical, measured, a final bow before curtain call. Rachel left the gala without saying goodbye. She didn't even pretend to care about the silent auction or the pre-packaged photo ops. The moment she stepped into her car, she started dialing. Her mother picked up on the third ring. Why am I being summoned to a private boardroom tomorrow morning? Her mother exhaled, annoyed. Darling, it's just optics, a formality, probably a compliance update. Then why the executive level? Rachel pressed. Silence. Mom? I'll look into it, just be there, it'll pass. Rachel hung up. It didn't feel like it would pass. It felt like it had already happened. She sat back in the leather seat as the driver pulled away from the gala, her mind scrambling through every little moment she had ignored. Michael never yelled. Michael never fought. Michael watched. And now? Michael was laughing with the men who once took marching orders from her mother. She opened her email, refreshed the board portal. There it was. New addendum, voting rights schedule, uploaded 6:44 p.m. She tapped it, password protected. But the name on the document? R. Langford, transition plan, preliminary draft. She read it 3 times. The only thing colder than the gala that night was the dawning realization that she wasn't walking into a boardroom tomorrow. She was walking into a verdict. The glass doors of the executive-level conference room hissed shut at exactly 8 a.m. Rachel sat near the end of the long obsidian table, flanked by department heads who couldn't meet her eyes. On any other Monday, this room would have been filled with croissants and passive-aggressive small talk. Today, it was cold, sterile, a stillness in the air like static before a lightning strike. Her mother was seated at the head of the table, radiant in her favorite navy blazer, the one with the antique brooch she only wore when asserting dominance. She gave Rachel a tight smile, like everything was under control, like this was still her kingdom. Probably an investor shakeup, she whispered. Nothing serious. But Rachel had read the room. She'd seen the memo title. She felt the eyes, and her mother's confidence now looked like a porcelain vase balanced on a splintering shelf. The chairman walked in at 8:02, flanked by 3 attorneys, none of whom worked for their firm. Not a good sign. He didn't bother with pleasantries. Effective immediately, he began, placing a stack of documents on the table. Controlling interest in Langford and Vale has formally changed hands. A beat of stunned silence. Rachel's mother blinked. Excuse me? Ownership restructuring has been completed. The new controlling entity exercised majority voting rights at 6 a.m. this morning. That's impossible, her mother snapped, voice rising. No one can do that without your awareness. The chairman cut her off, not unkindly. Yes, they can, and they did. You should have read the fine print in last quarter's convertible notes. She stood, furious. I am the managing director. I built this brand. I control. Not anymore, he said simply. A sharp buzz sounded from the panel at the wall. The doors opened. Michael walked in. He didn't smile, didn't smirk, just walked, unhurried, down the length of the room as every executive turned to stare. One of the lawyers nodded slightly as he passed. Rachel's mother froze mid-sentence, her jaw slack. He took the empty seat beside the chairman. The symbolism wasn't subtle. Her mother's voice returned, but it trembled now. What is this? Some stunt? Michael looked at her, calm as ice. No stunt, just structure. Rachel couldn't move. Michael continued, folding his hands. Over the past 7 months, an investment vehicle, consolidated under Midpoint Capital Trust, acquired multiple silent minority shares through third-party holding companies. He opened a sleek black folder. Inside were signed agreements, time-stamped transfers, a color-coded web of shell corporations converging like arteries. All legal, all disclosed, all ignored, I believe, by your advisory team. The chairman added, "We vetted every transaction. Our legal counsel confirms it. Ownership has transferred." Michael leaned back slightly. "Langford and Vale now reports to a new parent entity. I'm here to oversee transition." Rachel's mother was white as bone. You? You own my company?" Michael tilted his head. "Technically, the trust owns it, but yes, I control the trust." She staggered into her chair. "This is absurd. This company was built by my family and nearly collapsed under your leadership," Michael said smoothly, finally cutting the veneer. "Your expansion into luxury bridal lost $11.2 million last fiscal year. Your Milan contract was red flagged by auditors. You missed compliance deadlines in Q2, Q3, and December." He tapped the folder. "We acquired you because you made yourself vulnerable, not because I wanted revenge. That part is just a bonus." Rachel's mother tried to speak again, but the words choked. The chairman cleared his throat. "Effective today," he read from the document, "Miss Langford is relieved of her executive duties. She will retain an honorary position on the advisory board without operational authority." Someone handed her a release form. Her hand shook. Rachel couldn't even look at her, couldn't speak. Her pulse was in her ears. Then Michael turned to the room. "I know some of you have questions. I'll schedule individual meetings this week. No layoffs, no immediate restructuring, but we will be auditing every department beginning with the executive suite." He stood, collecting the folder. "We're not here to destroy anything. We're here to save what's left." Rachel's mother finally whispered, barely audible, "You planned this." Michael looked over his shoulder. "No," he said, "you did. The night you mistook silence for weakness." And then he walked out, the new owner of everything she once controlled. The humiliation wasn't whispered now. It was printed, notarized, and irreversible. By Wednesday, the office didn't look different, but it felt different. No furniture had moved. The name on the building hadn't changed. The receptionist still offered bottled water with imported lime wedges. But beneath the surface, beneath the recycled air, the security keycards, the polished quarterly reports, was a new order. Michael didn't fire anyone. He didn't have to. He rewired the entire machine, slowly, quietly, methodically, in ways that left no room for resistance. The first sign came when 3 of Rachel's former peers, all with director titles handed out like party favors during her mother's reign, found their calendar access revoked. Their departments were reassessed, then merged into leaner, performance-based units. Each was given a choice: new role, lower title, same pay, or exit gracefully. All chose to stay. The new org chart arrived Friday morning, slipped into inboxes under the subject line, Operational Streamline, Phase 1. Rachel clicked it, eyes scanning. Her title was no longer Junior Director, now Associate, Operations Tier 2, and just below that, in plain, undeniable font, reports to M. Roston. She blinked twice. It wasn't a mistake. She now answered to her ex-fiancé. She stormed into her mother's office, or what used to be her mother's office. The gold-plated nameplate had been replaced with a discreet advisory suite sign. Inside, the desk was smaller, the view worse, the silence louder. Her mother looked up from a single monitor. No assistants, no calls. "I saw," she muttered. "You knew?" Rachel hissed. "I was lucky to keep a chair," her mother said without meeting her gaze. "They gave me ceremonial seniority. No voting rights, no teams. It's hospice care with a company email." Rachel stood there, frozen. How is this even legal? Her mother just laughed. Not a joyful sound, more like something broken cracking in half. "It's not just legal, it's surgical." Downstairs, Michael had already implemented policy changes. Every expense over $500 required dual approval. Company cars were returned. Monthly stipends for executive lifestyle calibration, her mother's invention, were suspended pending audit. Corporate credit cards were frozen. Every department head now submitted weekly performance logs. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. People listened because they knew. Knew the man who once brought his own lunch and never made a scene had just single-handedly inverted the power structure. Every whisper now included his name, not in fear, but in something worse: respect. Rachel tried to confront him once. She knocked on his new glass-walled office, polished, minimalist, strategic. He looked up from a spreadsheet. "Yes? You demoted me?" He didn't even flinch. "No, you were realigned based on verified contributions. Everyone was. I was a director. You held the title of director, he replied calmly. Your department had the lowest delivery-to-budget ratio in the company. That would have gotten you fired under anyone else. She stepped inside. You're punishing me. He met her eyes, flat and unblinking. Rachel, if I were punishing you, your badge wouldn't work. She opened her mouth, closed it again. He returned to the spreadsheet. You'll get a project assignment by 3 p.m. You'll be evaluated like everyone else. I recommend you deliver. Dismissed. That was the worst part. He didn't gloat. He didn't drag out the pain. He just executed. Cleanly. Within days, HR was reshuffled. Finance submitted retroactive compliance reports. The marble lobby still gleamed, but behind the scenes, all the rot was being burned out, replaced with something leaner, smarter, unforgiving. Her mother started arriving late, leaving early. Her presence, once queen-like and looming, was now ornamental. She wandered the hallways like a ghost with a keycard. Rachel wasn't sure what scared her more, the fact that Michael had taken everything, or the fact that he hadn't even enjoyed it. He wasn't celebrating. He was building, and they were now part of it, not as royalty, as employees, under review. Rachel arrived 13 minutes late. The training session was already in full swing, a sleek PowerPoint on restructuring protocols glowing behind a sharply dressed woman from Michael's internal audit team. 24 employees sat in rows, some with tablets, others with notepads, all deadly focused. No side chatter, no phones. Efficiency hummed in the air. Michael sat in the back, arms folded, observing, not leading, watching. Rachel slipped in quietly, trying to find the least humiliating seat. The only open one was at the front. Of course. As she passed him, their eyes met. No scowl, no sigh, just a single glance. Acknowledgement, but not warmth. She sat, feigned calm, scribbled a few meaningless notes while trying to suppress the burn creeping up her neck. The trainer continued, explaining new review cycles, performance thresholds, and promotion criteria under the midpoint method. Clean, numbers-based, ruthless. Rachel had seen this kind of session before, just never from the bleacher seats. By the end, a short quanda opened. Michael didn't speak. He took notes, watched reactions. When someone asked about job security, the trainer smiled. Security is built on delivery. This isn't about feelings. It's about output. No one laughed, not even nervously. When the session ended, most filed out quietly. A few approached Michael with questions. He gave short, precise responses. Run the metrics again. That's covered in clause 4.3. Speak to ops lead before Friday. Rachel waited until the hallway cleared, then walked up to him. Michael, she said softly. He turned. Rachel. Her hands twitched around the folder she wasn't really holding for any reason. Can we talk? Not here. He checked his watch, then looked back at her. 2 minutes. What's on your mind? I miss you, she said. No build-up, no clever phrasing. Just truth, as raw as it had been tucked away. He blinked once, then quietly. Rachel, this isn't personal. It's performance-based. Her stomach dropped, but he wasn't done. Let's stay professional. The words hung there, painfully familiar, because they were hers. She'd said them to him once, years ago, when he tried to hold her hand after a tense holiday dinner with her parents. She was embarrassed. Her mother had mocked his tie. Her father had said something about ambitionless men. Michael, trying to smooth the moment, had leaned in to reassure her, and she'd said it flatly, eyes on her phone. Let's stay professional, okay? Now here it was, echoed back in a lobby under his banner, the same tone, the same distance. She didn't move. He gave her a polite nod. I have meetings, then walked away, leaving her standing alone beneath the glow of a wall-mounted mission statement she used to recite during interviews. Now, she wasn't sure if she even believed it. Whispers moved around her, team leads trading notes, employees discussing promotion eligibility, a new hire asking, is that the ex, the one he took the company from? She turned slowly. The imbalance wasn't growing. It was done, complete. Michael didn't need to humiliate her. He didn't need to fire her. He'd done something worse. He had reduced her from emotional significance to professional insignificance. And for the first time in her adult life, Rachel Langford wasn't being envied. She was being evaluated. Michael was mid-sentence on a conference call when the door slammed open hard enough to rattle the glass. Rachel's mother didn't knock. She stormed in like she still owned the place, like the walls should have bent around her. Her heels stabbed the floor with each step, her voice already breaking protocol. End the call, now. Michael didn't flinch. Gentlemen, please hold. He tapped mute. Miss Langford, this is a secured meeting. This is my company, she snapped. Her face was pale beneath her makeup, the rage pressing through like a crack in porcelain. And you're dismantling it, piece by piece. My daughter's position, my board seat, my legacy. You think you can just walk in here and humiliate us because I insulted your ego over soup? Michael stood, not fast, just enough. He stepped around the desk, folder already in hand. He didn't shout. He didn't posture. He simply opened it, slow, deliberate, and laid it on the glass table between them. Inside, evidence. Debt schedules showing 3 years of deferred supplier payments masked by seasonal variance notes. Misappropriated bonus distributions, including 6-figure advisory compensation paid directly to her holding company, even during a net loss quarter. Compliance violations, procurement practices flagged by a whistleblower and buried by a former VP who was later promoted by her. Read, Michael said. She glanced down, just for a second, enough to recognize the headers. Her lip trembled. You didn't just insult me, he said, voice cool, clipped. You ran your firm like a monarchy. You cashed reputation checks your business couldn't cover. I didn't humiliate you. I simply stopped the bleeding. Her voice dropped to a hiss. You planned this. You waited for the chance to twist the knife. I kept you on, he interrupted, because I thought maybe, just maybe, you could adapt. That's over now. She reached for the folder, as if to slam it shut. He stopped her with a glance. Everything in there has already been submitted to legal. It's not leverage, it's record. She stepped back like it burned her. I made this company, she said, quieter now. And you nearly buried it, he replied. Outdated vision, crony hires, blind loyalty to your own ego. The only reason this brand still breathes is because someone else took the wheel before you drove it off the cliff. A quiet knock. 2 security personnel stood at the door, not big, not threatening, just unmistakably there. Michael, I've revoked your access, he said. Advisory seat symbolic. You'll retain dividends, nothing more. If you wish to appeal, feel free. But every document in that folder is real and time-stamped. She stared at the men in the doorway, then back at him. Her face shifted, from fury to something Rachel had never seen on her before. Fear. Real, deep, suffocating fear. You think this is over? She asked, barely above a whisper. You think a name on a building matters more than blood? Michael tilted his head slightly. I don't need your name, he said. I have your infrastructure, your contracts, your team, your daughter. That last word didn't land like he expected. Her face hardened again, but the heat was gone. She knew she was already out. She walked to the door, paused, then turned and said one last thing, teeth clenched. You'll choke on this power one day. They always do. Michael looked down at the open folder, then back up at her. No, he said. You just forgot how heavy it is when you're carrying it alone. Security didn't have to touch her. She walked herself out, every step echoing off walls she used to command. The office was silent again. Michael closed the folder, returned to his call. Apologies for the interruption, he said into the headset, voice calm. Where were we? Vendor restructuring. Please proceed. The email hit her inbox at 7:06 a.m. No subject line flare, no warning. Notification, reporting structure update, Q4 transition. Rachel opened it before coffee, half asleep in her corner office that no longer had a view, the walls bare since the reorg stripped executive aesthetics from the budget. Effective next quarter, your direct report has changed. VP, Strategy, Michael R. Her breath caught. No chain of approvals, no soft rollout, no buffer, just him. It wasn't a mistake. The system didn't glitch. Her new boss was the man who used to hold her hand beneath that same table during board meetings. The man she once told, during a fight over seating charts and prenups, that legacy can't be built on emotion. Apparently, it could be built on leverage. She stared at the screen, chest tightening, then stood, didn't knock, didn't hesitate. Michael's new office was larger now. The walls were still minimalist, but the silence was different, purposeful. There were 2 chairs in front of his desk. Neither offered comfort. He didn't look surprised when she entered. He didn't look up right away. Just finished typing something, hit enter, then folded his hands. Rachel. She sat without being asked. Her throat felt dry, but she didn't reach for the water pitcher on the table. She wasn't sure she could hold the glass without trembling. I got the email, she said. He nodded. Yes. You're my direct report now? I am. She blinked. Why? Because you're not useless, he said, voice flat. Just undirected, and I need results. She flinched. Michael, I didn't know she was going to say that. I know. I didn't mean any of it. I know. She let out a breath. Then why? He leaned forward, calm as ever. But you stood there. The words landed like a flat line. You stood there and let it happen, and that's enough. Rachel's eyes filled before she could stop them. You have no idea what it's like, growing up around her, always being expected to match her sharpness, her tongue, her ambition. You think I agreed with her? Michael didn't blink. I think you stayed silent, when it counted. She covered her face for a moment, then looked back up, mascara already running. Does any of it matter now? He reached into the drawer, pulled out a thin folder, slid it across the desk. Your 3-month plan. She didn't move to take it. Review KPIs by Friday, present at next leadership sync, departmental budget compliance, operational efficiency review. Her voice cracked. Is that all I am now? To me? He asked. She nodded, just once. Michael leaned back. To me, he said softly, you're an asset, one I'm still deciding whether to rehabilitate or phase out. She froze, not because of cruelty, but because he meant every word. There was no hate in his tone, no bitterness, just numbers, ratios, strategy. Rachel finally reached for the folder. Her fingers shook. She tucked it against her chest like a sentence. Dismissed? She asked, half a whisper. I didn't summon you, he said, already turning to his monitor. But yes. She stood. The carpet didn't cushion the sound of her heels as much as she wanted it to. At the door, she paused. I still love you, she said quietly. Michael didn't turn, didn't even lift his hands from the keyboard. I used to, he said. The door clicked shut behind her, and that was that. Love was dead. Business remained. At 11:43 p.m., the lights in Michael's office cast a pale glow over the spreadsheet he'd been refining for the past hour. The building was nearly empty now, just night shift custodians and the occasional security badge swipe echoing faintly through the hallway. He didn't rush, he never did. A soft instrumental track played through his speakers, barely audible. Classical, something balanced, not victorious, not sentimental. He opened a blank email. To m.langford@lvgrp.com, cc r.langford@lvgrp.com, subject closure. He paused before typing, not to reconsider, just to enjoy the stillness, the kind that comes when the last domino falls and the silence isn't awkward, it's earned. Then slowly he wrote, acquisition closed, your daughter now reports to me, regards, the intern. No emojis, no threats, no attachments, just surgical punctuation, like a scalpel sliding across silk. He hit send, and that was it. No celebration, no speech, no glasses clinking in some rooftop bar, just a final line under a chapter they wrote for him, with their laughter, their smug dinner toasts, and that one sentence that used to echo in his head every time he walked into a boardroom pretending not to know more than the men in better suits. My daughter deserves an heir, not an intern. Now, the intern didn't just win, he rewrote the succession plan, and all it took was silence, spreadsheets, and one well-timed exit.